What is up, my friend? Welcome to episode number 72 of the Untitled Chapter podcast. This episode is all about the benefits of balancing masculine and feminine energy. This episode is not about like gender or like men or women or nothing of that nature. This is really about maintaining the harmony of both energies that reside within you. Like knowing when and how to leverage your masculine to actually press forward and lead and create results, and also when and how to leverage your feminine to receive and be expressive and playful and also create results with the feminine energy that lives within you. So if you've ever wondered like what's possible for you in your life and your business when you actually increase your capacity to be all of it, all of the masculine, all of the feminine, sit back, relax, and enjoy the show.
Welcome to the Anthony John Amix podcast, the one and only podcast designed to help you become unstoppable in life and business. My name is Anthony John Amix. My friends call me AJ, and my goal with this podcast is to help you remember who you truly are so you can maintain your center in the chaos, embody your potential, and unlock freedom in your life and business. That being said, let's get into today's show.
All right, welcome back. Now, before I bring on today's guest, I want to let you know about my book called Mindset is Not Enough. You know, a lot of personal brands, they're constantly trying to level up their mindset and their skill set so they can increase their income and their impact and their influence. Yet what many of them don't realize when they find themselves stalled out or stuck or struggling, it's actually a thing I like to call body set that is keeping them from going to the next level. Now, I wrote all about this and what you can do about it and how to understand it in this book. So if you really want to know what it will take to break through to your next level of freedom, purpose, and success in your life, simply go grab Mindset is Not Enough by going to ajamix.com/book. Again, go grab Mindset is Not Enough simply by going to ajamix.com/book. Now, with that being said, I want to introduce you to today's guest. His name is Leivan Hwang. He's an incredible human being. I met him back in January of 2020 of this year, back in Kona, Hawaii. And Leivan's just like a celebrated space holder for a men's event, both online and physical space as well. He's also like a fusion of an architect, a product designer, an entrepreneur, a dancer, and a teacher. And he's practiced meditation for over 15 years, like learning and incorporating different techniques from different traditions. And he also has a background in martial arts, Qigong, authentic movement, Pilates, and yoga. He's just like one of the most integrated men that I've ever had the privilege of meeting. And what I mean by this is he's like open to all of his motions, all of his sensations in his bodies, and all of the experiences while guiding other people to be able to do the same. Now, he's also married and he co-creates programs with his wife for couples looking to create greater intimacy and to like really like deepen their connection with one another and being able to communicate in a more grounded way and more accepting ways and being able to transmute like whatever conflicts that do arise in their marriage into like a deeper and more expansive way to connect with one another. So with that being said, let's bring Leivan onto the show. Leivan, what's up, brother? Welcome to the podcast, man.
Oh, thank you so much, my brother. It's so beautiful to be here with you, to see you, and just to get to drop in together today.
Yeah, dude, it's going to be fun, dude. We haven't done this since January. In fact, January is the first time I had ever met you when I went to Shem's Hartwell's event, one of his men's circles. Was it a men's passage event or was it just a men's circle event?
It was a different event. It was an event outside of the regular men's passage, men's leadership council things, which, you know, those are ongoing programs, you know, whereas what we got to gather in was more of just a one-time circle, you know, that was so juicy for me. And it was amazing to be with you there, my brother.
Dude, right back at you. I remember walking into the house and seeing you, and I was like, who is this Asian dude? Like wearing his Kung Fu ninja clothes. And then we went down to the beach and you get in your Speedo. And I was like, man, who is this guy? And there was just something about like you, your presence. And it's actually one of the reasons I've asked you to come onto the podcast today. We're going to be talking about like the benefits to balancing masculine, feminine, or if we want to call this yang and yin, it doesn't matter to me. And we'll talk about like all of that. But honestly, dude, you are one of the probably only guys I've ever met who I feel at a very deep level that you're one of the most balanced humans that I've ever met, out of men or women. I feel like you're one of the most balanced, like integrated men who has the capacity to really travel the whole spectrum from all the way over to yang, masculine, and all the way over to like the feminine and the yin. And you notice how to like dance with it beautifully. And that's what I really wanted to unpack today, because how did you come to that awareness? How did you come to having the capacity to do it? And I also want to talk about like some of the benefits that's brought to your life.
Oh, wow. Wow, my brother. I'd simply like to just soak in that beautiful reflection for a moment. Thank you so
You're
much
welcome.
for seeing and experiencing me so beautifully and expressing that. And so I felt like there were a lot of questions and different points I could jump on from what you just poured forth. Is there any one in particular you'd like me to start with?
Yeah, so let's talk about how did you come into this? Well, let's back up. What are the benefits of being integrated, both masculine, feminine, both, you know, the yang, yin? Like, what are the benefits, practical
Mm,
benefits? Because somebody may be listening to this, like, what's the point? So let's anchor some benefits right up front of what is the goodness that comes from being integrated and being able to travel the spectrum.
great question. For me, the most clear and consistent benefit is simply ease of being. You know, there aren't any parts of myself that I need to be in conflict with or denying or resisting, right? And it allows me to flow very easily between the different aspects of myself and to engage with each person, each situation in the way that is going to be most impactful. Right? Because sometimes I do need to take a hard stand. Right? Sometimes I need to bring that fire and that penetrating direction, right? And other times I simply need to soften and allow something to happen or surrender to a situation that I know I can't control and be in acceptance with what's about to unfold before me.
Mm, it's brilliant, dude.
Uh,
Love how you describe that. I want to talk about,
Thank you.
and we're going to go into your journey a bit, but before we do that, I feel like we're here in the Western society. I know you support like Shims and his men's circles, men's passage events. You're one of
Yes.
the co-facilitators there, and you're like fucking brilliant at it. And the event is amazing.
Thank
And
you.
anybody who's looking for men's work, I definitely recommend that you dive in with Levin and Shims. I have back in January, and it was a life-changing experience for me, which I've shared on this show. I think it was episode 15 or something like that.
Mm,
But before we do that, I think we're here in the West. Men think like, cool, I just need to be like full of yang. I need to be full of that penetration energy. I ain't got
yes.
to go fucking like create. And if I don't do that, then I'm not being the man. And if I'm not
Yeah.
that, then it also detracts from the connection that they experience with their wife or their partner or whatever. So,
Mhm.
how did you come to this awareness to know when to dance in and out of like that masculine penetration? But I mean, because you run your own business, like you're an architect and you got to do projects
Yes.
and shit. And I remember like one of the things that we talked about in Hawaii was like, how comfortable are you with your anger? And like you were just like, wow. And I was like, okay, really comfortable. What would that look like if you channeled that? And it was one of the most beautiful things I'd ever witnessed. I'll never forget. It was like you were like Gohan from like Dragon Ball Z or something, where you just like pulled it up in you and this like channeled it out of you. And I was like, yeah, that's good. Take that back to your life. And you had messaged me several months ago now, and you're like, dude, that really helped me. Thank you. So it's really cool. So how did you come to the awareness of that for yourself? Was it just your culture or something different?
It's a continuing exploration, a continuing journey, AJ. And I do want to take a moment here to appreciate you again for what you brought forth in that circle from me. I do clearly remember you calling out this your wisdom and advice to take that fire that you just spoke about and direct it towards a project, towards a client that I had at the time. And that was huge for me, my brother. So thank you again
You're
for that.
welcome, Ren. You're
That
welcome.
really shifted things for that project. And and allowed me to take it in the direction I needed it and wanted it to go.
Awesome.
And to answer your question, yeah, it's something that I'm still exploring, and I guess that would be my answer. I feel like I'm in often, I how do I put this? To be settled in a place where I don't have to know. I'd simply be open to feeling and sensing what needs to arise in each moment.
Yep.
And I'm going to be wrong sometimes. There's sometimes when this fire comes up and it's from some trigger or some wounding, right? And I'm just being engulfed by it, and I'll express from it and not realize until afterwards, oh shit, that was me speaking from my pain, not from my higher, more conscious warrior, right? And then I get to reflect back on it and excavate another layer of that pain or wounding or whatever that trigger was, so that next time I might be more conscious, right? And it's so much about being able to express what's going on with the people I'm engaging in with, whether that might be you or a circle of brothers that we're banded together with to do our work together, or my client or my wife, right? And then just getting that feedback, having that conversation, being willing to be transparent and open about it, and then harvesting the fruit of what comes of that and integrating that so that I can continue to learn and continue to grow and continue to engage at the highest level, higher and higher levels, as I progress through my life.
Now, have you always been this way? Have you just were you just born into like having this deeper wisdom within you where you're willing to sit in the pocket and just kind of observe and see what layers need to be healed? And like, were you just born that way, or was it your culture? Like, I want to dig deeper there and kind of figure out how you figured out a way to sit in the pocket with life. Because what I found here in America, and for a lot of the other cultures, people in Australia, people in the UK, because I coach them too, they do not have the confidence or the certainty and uncertainty. They think that they need to figure it out. They believe that they have to penetrate. And if they don't, then there's something wrong with them. They don't really take the time to be quote unquote conscious, to be aware of and align with the truth. So were you just born that way or something different?
I definitely was not born this way.
Awesome.
I did not begin my sort of journey of understanding myself in a deep way until I was, what about 2005? So that was 15 years ago.
Wow.
And I spent my life until then, convinced that everything was just gravy, and whenever anything that even started to tickle at my fears and uncertainties and all the many parts of myself that I was fully avoiding, just shoving down as deeply as I could, everything, and so when I finally came to this realization of, oh man, there's a lot of shit down there I've kept buried my whole life, it came flooding out. And it's been an invaluable and also irresistible part of my life to continue that discovery, continue that excavation.
Awesome. So would you say a lot of the repression, you were more like growing up prior to those 15 years, you were more in yin or were you more in yang?
That's a great question. Wow, what was I really like then? I would say I was more in yang,
Okay.
because that was the way I was conditioned to be,
Mm,
right? That was what society had taught me. And, I feel like I naturally have many in aspects, that's simply my nature, but, in the unconscious way that I was living, in the unconscious way that I was engaging with life and the people around me. I was very subject to the dominant conditioning of how quote unquote man is supposed to be.
Awesome. So what was it 15 years ago that was the wake up? What was the trigger that then sent you on this journey to go within, to then pull back all the layers, to be really integrated in yang, but also start incorporating a lot of the yin and the ability just to like receive and be like, for instance, I remember this. I think it was on like our last day at the retreat, or maybe it was the second day. I don't remember. There was a guy there. His name was Dell, and you like jumped into his lap and gave him a big old kiss on the lips, right? And like in my culture, I grew up in East Texas. If that would have happened to me in 2003, I'd have been like, "What the fuck is going on here?" Right?
Right on. Yeah.
Now I'm like, it's perfect. It's absolutely perfect.
Yeah.
So I want to figure out what was that trigger, and then how did you start integrating the yin to be able to go down that spectrum over the past, many years?
Oh man, thank you for asking.
You're welcome.
Yeah, it started with my father's passing. After my father died, that was a huge shock for me. I worked for his architectural firm, and so he was not only, my father figure, the patriarch of my family, he was also my livelihood, or the source of my livelihood. And after about a year after he passed, I took a break from architectural and interior design work and started helping a friend of mine who wanted to open a spiritual center in Taipei, where I was living at the time. And so I helped her manage the center, organize events and programs, and started taking workshops and courses with her. And I remember there was this one meditation that she was leading us into in a workshop, inviting us to feel into all of the masks that we wore, to engage with all the different people and situations in our lives. And at the time, I couldn't feel any of them. I couldn't come up with anything, right? Because I felt like I'm always myself. That's what I believed.
Sure.
After that struggling meditation, we had a lunch break. And during the lunch break, she came up to me and said, just drop one little bomb on me. Levin, your problem is that you don't think you have any problems. And then she walked off. And I felt something inside me just drop. And in the afternoon, she guided a second meditation, inviting us to see and feel the parts of ourselves that we were hiding from. And AJ, I saw Gollum inside me. This shriveled, fearful, angry, hateful part of myself that I had locked in a cage my entire life. All the parts of me that I wasn't willing to touch or to admit to. And I burst into tears, just writhing and crying. And, at first, I've had so much of a disgust and refusal in that moment. And by the time that meditation was done, I had settled into acceptance, embrace this terrifying part of myself, told him that he was loved, and I've carried him with me ever since.
What was disgusting about that part of you?
Well, at the time, I was, I had repressed it for so long that when I first saw him, I was completely repulsed, and there was that instance of not wanting to fully believe that that was me. Right? And then, very quickly that I wasn't able to hold that. I had no choice but to open up and to accept once I was shown, once I could so fully feel those parts of myself for the first time.
And as you felt those pieces, as you allowed yourself to be with that part of you, have you found that that quote unquote disgusting part of you has been like transmuted into this part of you where you're just like, hey, how you doing?
Yes, my brother, that's such a wonderful way to phrase it. Absolutely. That is exactly that. And so the part of my character that is formed by that creature is the part of me that wants to be loved, that is so good at caring for people, at pleasing others, right? So that I get to feel that love and appreciation with which I used to mask over,
Yeah.
this part of me that I didn't want to be, right? And so, even now when I feel that initial compulsion to, oh, I've got to say yes to this person, right? Oh, I feel like I want to do something for this person. I can connect with that golem inside me, and when I do, I get a much clearer answer of where I'm going or where I'm coming from when I'm offering my service,
Awesome.
where I'm coming from when I am saying yes, right? And then I also have much more grounding to say no
Right.
when that's called for.
What were some of the ways that you used to mask those parts of you, those emotions?
Just outright denial
Mm.
and repression. If I felt myself, it's not like I wouldn't get angry. Of course I would, and it would tend to just come in these unexpected explosive bursts, right? Because if it was just, kind of a little bit of heat, right, I would just quickly bury it and convince myself that, hey, that's okay. I can deal with this. No problem, man. Let's just put in the past and move on. And not being aware of how tight my body was getting, not being aware of that churning in my belly. I just, as much as possible, staying in my head and convincing myself that, no, I'm not angry, man. I'm okay. I'm cool. You know?
Yep. Totally.
And yeah.
Just betraying yourself essentially, because like that part of
Yeah.
us is like screaming and knocking on the door. And it's like the way I always teach it is like it's almost like adopting an orphan, meaning we go throughout our life, events happen, and for whatever reason, it's usually because we won't be accepted in our tribe or some version of that. And we like open up this closet door within ourselves and we throw that part of us into the closet and we shut the door and we lock it because we're like, that part of me is not good. It's bad. It hurts people. No time and place for that. And then we go on about our day and just masking, sedating. And part of this, like coming and integrating, is having the courage to go in and explore and open up all of those doors for all of those little parts of ourselves that we've locked up. Just give them a hug, just to be with them,
Mm-hmm.
just to understand them. And in doing that, that's part of like us integrating those pieces and they start transmuting from this disgusting thing that we're like, oh no, to like this beautiful part of us that can be really leveraged into just being a creator, like a really, really powerful creator. Like you talk about being and experiencing a lot more ease, man. So I appreciate you opening up and sharing here and sharing some of the ways you've masked and just your journey. Thank you.
Oh, you're so welcome, my brother. And boom, man. I love the way that just flowed out of you. Perfect, perfect, absolute resonance from me.
Awesome. So
Yeah.
if you had some advice for people who are like resonating with how they're showing up as a man, even a woman could be listening to this and starting to click like, hey, there's some parts of me that I've totally
Mm.
repressed or whatever. What advice would you give them on how to go on this journey to start integrating these pieces of them so they can flow the spectrum of masculine and feminine, of the yang and the yin?
I would simply share what's working for me, and that is to be, well, first of all, I would start with breath. Whenever I'm, no, let me wind that back. first is awareness and noticing, and allowing space for that noticing. I feel like if I want to compare where I'm at now with where I was 20 years ago, there was a refusal to notice, right? Or a refusal to allow what I was noticing to be brought into my experience, right? And it's an easy thing to say. It can be a very challenging thing to execute, because there were and there still are so many ways that I've been conditioned, that I am conditioned, right? And those conditionings can be a very, very strong pull that tries to drag us away from whatever intention we might have to notice and to allow.
Awesome. Do you
And
think
then
go ahead.
Sure. And then from that noticing, for me, it's moving into breath and breathing and being with whatever is there, whatever turmoil there is. There's, the beautiful, one of the other beautiful things about noticing is that it allows me to know that I am not that which I'm noticing, right? So if I'm noticing my anger, then I'm actually allowing myself to have some space from it. Not space in terms of pushing away, but space in terms of knowing that I am more than this emotion that's arising within me. And so as I bring the breath with it, I allow myself to feel that emotion more fully and let it tingle and flow and explode in my body, whatever way it needs to. And then it'll simply move on and dissipate.
Yeah. What would you tell somebody who's listening to this and they've never had an experience of experiential learning? They've never been to a men's circle, women's circle, or anything of that nature. And they have like a fear because they've rejected that part of them for so long. And they're afraid if they let it out, like, because you're giving them permission right now to allow, to express, which I totally
Yes.
understand. But for some people, they definitely, I think, have this belief system, which it does keep them stuck. And their mind does a very good job. Their ego does a very good job of keeping them where they're at, because it tells them this lie that well, if you express that, that's going to hurt people. And what I found in a lot of this work, it seems like the people who are led to it the most are people who have very big hearts, and they genuinely don't walk into that shadow because their belief system is, well, if I go in the shadow, I'm going to hurt somebody, and I don't want to go there. So the most loving thing I can do is actually shut that part of me down. So what would you tell that person when we're saying just allow it and be with it? Like how would you help them see that they have the capacity to legitimately just be with that part of them? Does that make sense?
Absolutely, AJ. That's a great question. One way is to create a safe space to begin with, a container in which you feel like you can allow whatever is going to come out to be expressed, so that there's nobody around. For me, I love being in nature, especially if it's on a cliffside with the ocean waves crashing down beneath me, right? So if I'm going to fucking scream, if I've got to fucking cry and thrash, the waves are going to wash that sound away.
Awesome.
Right? Or, if it's simply a room with a pillow that I can scream into to mute that, right? And so, yeah, I feel like that safety is very important.
Yeah.
And also find somebody to support you. Find a facilitator, a guide that you feel like you can open to, that you feel like you can trust, that you feel like you resonate with, and who has the capacity to hold that space with you.
Awesome. What have you found has been like the return on investment in paying somebody to be that guide and paying somebody to hold that space? Because I think sometimes people think the return on investment only comes into some type of business program. They think, well, if I'm going to explode my business or grow my marriage, then I need to go learn these tactics or strategies because that's what's going to give me an ROI. I've actually found this work that we're talking about here has exponential ROI on marriages and on business growth. But not a whole lot of people are convinced of that quite yet. So I'm just kind of curious, what would you tell them about the ROI on that investment?
I would tell them that it's incalculable for me, because how can I put a value on the uplifting and up-leveling of my everyday experience? Right? And for me, I feel like we're at this, we're in this age where for probably thousands of years, humanity has been conditioned to a paradigm of objectification, right? And that's why this question of ROI is so important, right? Because we're conditioned to put some kind of mathematical value on everything, whether it's our experience or an experience, whether it's the environment, whether it's our actual financial investments. We're so often objectifying everything, right? Whereas for me, I'm opening more and more to the value of, what is my experience in each and every moment, right? And the flip side of it for me is that, as I open to that intrinsic experiential value of just goodness and juiciness and presence, I find the opportunities for my business, the opportunities for me to have financial abundance that's flowing towards me opens up along with it as well.
Awesome. How have you found being able to dance in the spectrum to impact your marriage, particularly your ability to go into your yin? How has that really impacted your marriage? Because I think a lot of people think, polarity, man needs to be full of yang, woman needs to feel yin if we're going to have polarity. So how have you found the integration of the spectrum to actually impact your marriage?
Oh, I love this question, AJ, and I feel it's such an important one. I would start by referencing something that you expressed in the beginning of our conversation about how we all have yin and yang within us, right? And so my wife is also going to have many yang elements in her, right? And so for us, the experience of polarity isn't this kind of externalized or conditioned or set masculine and feminine, right? The polarity is each of us as a fully integrated individual being, me integrated with my yin and yang, and she integrated with hers. And, the uniqueness of each of our particular imprints is what drew us together in the first place, right? And so as each one of us does our work and opens more fully to whatever the expressions of yin and yang are within each of us, then we find that magnetism becoming stronger and stronger as we continue to do our work both individually and together.
And as you're doing that work, are you guys finding more and more often you're becoming more aware of, I don't know if it's the patterns where you realize, my partner is over here in yang, so therefore I'm going to consciously choose to show up this way in yin, or vice versa, and you guys are kind of doing this dance that's able to kind of create the polarity and the connection?
Yeah, that's a beautiful way to put it. Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. If I feel that there's a lot of fire and heat coming from her, and that she needs to just get directed and get this, whatever it is, right? And if I have the spaciousness, yeah, then that's my turn to flow and to allow for that space, right? And
Awesome.
to support her in whatever's coming up in that, right? And vice versa, you know.
And what do you do when you do not have the spaciousness for it? This is a very practical
Oh, there can
one
be
because,
some
like,
weeping and gnashing of
yeah,
teeth there, my brother.
of course, of course. But the thing is I think people listen to these conversations and sometimes I think, at least my judgment, my story is, it really can be that simple.
Yeah,
And also, like, the contrast of life is a real thing. And there's
it
times
is.
when a partner is going to be in that fire, that penetration, that yang, that masculine, whether they're male or female, it doesn't matter. And we consciously, like, in our minds, we're like, okay, this requires some space. This requires me to hold some space and be in yang and
Mhm.
yin. And the truth is, like, I don't have the fucking space for this right now.
Yeah,
you
yeah,
know? And
yeah.
so it's like, so what do you do? This is a very practical thing.
Absolutely, yeah, and hopefully, I'm in a solid enough state that I can have that beautifully conscious response that you just expressed.
Awesome.
Sorry, my love, I don't have the space to support you in that right now. And if that's going to trigger her, then I need to have I do need to have a little bit more additional space to allow her to be in her trigger, and
Mm,
not feel like however she's reacting to my inability to support her is an attack on me,
yeah.
right? And if I don't have the consciousness of the space, then there's going to be a conflagration. There's going to be some kind of conflict in that moment. And, you know, that's okay too, right? Those moments are going to happen. And the important thing for us, the absolutely critical piece for us, is to create the space after everything is settled to come back together and to support each other in expressing what was up for each of us,
Awesome.
and to embrace each other for whatever trauma, trigger, wounding was active in that moment, and to express our love and compassion for each other as we come together and complete that.
So good. It's huge, man. I hope people
Yeah.
are, like, getting this wisdom that's like raining down from the heavens. It's good, man. Good. How important do you
Thank
think
you.
circle work is for men and women to be a part of? I know for me, some of my biggest growth has been paying to put myself into environments that are going to guide me into the parts of myself and my life that I did not even know existed. And so I
Mm,
take a blind leap of
yeah.
faith because I'm drawn to that part. That's what ended me up in Kona. I bought those
Yes.
tickets when I was in England, actually. Was it
Whoa.
England, or did I buy those tickets when we were in Romania? Actually, it was in Romania. I bought them in Romania, knowing, like, cool, I'm going
Hmm.
to England, and then I'm going to go here, and then I'm flying. Like, I didn't even talk to Shims. I just sent him the money via Venmo. I just sent it to him. And so it's things like that that for most people seem completely illogical, and it totally is. But
Hmm.
I'm also a sacral human being. It's my authority. It's the way I'm designed. Not everybody's designed that way.
Yes.
So I listen to it. I live and die by that. So every time I listen and put myself into an environment that puts me into a place of just massive amount of uncertainty, because my wife's like, "What are you going to go there and learn?" I'm like, "I have no clue. I have no idea what it is. I have no idea. All I know is I'm supposed to be there." So how have you found that type of work where you're going into those unknown parts of yourself is really, like, the thing that helps you collapse time and really, like, integrate quickly?
Absolutely, my brother.
Yeah.
Full on yes to that. Yeah. And I feel like that connects with what I was sharing earlier about, just continuing to be in the mystery, right?
Yeah.
Continuing to not be certain, and to be able to be comfortable with not being certain about how whatever's going to unfold. And as you so beautifully just put it, being willing to dive into circle together, men with men, women with women, or together.
Yeah,
Right.
totally. I
Men
think
and
we're at a
women
time and
together.
place in history where it is actually very beneficial for, there's a time and place for men to be with men, there's a time and place for women to be with women, and there's also a time and place for both genders to be in a circle together. I know at one of the events I run called Uprising, we have both men and women there. We have very strict boundaries, but there's things that the women unlock in the men and the men unlock in the women that just wouldn't happen in just a guy circle or a woman circle.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. And being in that circle together, that fire together, right? Where, you know, if you're willing to step up, step forward and be seen, right? And to is open to your own vulnerability while being witnessed by those who are there to support and nurture you. Wow, that is just something that's inexplicably empowering and transformative and healing for me.
Yeah. Well, one of the crazy things that I can't explain is when these groups come together, I swear,
Mm.
like it seems like every single person is there divinely to help
Yes.
every single person there with an aspect. And this
Yeah.
only happens like every single time, like every
Right.
single
Right.
time, And it's so fascinating to me how that
Absolutely.
works.
Yeah. Yeah. I love your reflection on this. And there's moments in almost every circle I've been a part of where, some kind of conflict has arisen, and my conditioned judgment, will question that when it first arises, right? And by the end of the program, it's revealed that, wow, that conflict brought so much juice, so much needed healing that would not have come forth if
Mhm.
there hadn't been that moment of challenge.
What was one of those moments of conflict in Hawaii? If you don't mind sharing, you don't have to give names or anything, but just like a situation.
Mm. You know what? Nothing from the Hawaii circle is immediately coming to mind. Is there anything that you recall that was
Conflict
a little
wise,
edgy and crunchy?
let's see, conflict wise. There was one, it wasn't conflict, but I think it was conflict for one of the dudes who had been
Mm-hmm.
smoking weed like his entire life. And he just like
Right.
first day came clean. And there was the opportunity for conflict because he was like, I just gotta let you know this is where I'm at. And he was very much like justifying his behavior.
Yeah.
And we were all like, cool, if that's what you need to do, by all means, do your thing.
I do
And
remember
so
that.
there was no conflict, right? It was just kind of like we all held
Yeah.
space. We all observed his own judgment of
Yes.
himself that he then threw into the pile. And then we were just like, that doesn't exist here. And it genuinely didn't. It wasn't like a spiritually
Mm-hmm.
bypassing thing. If
Right.
that group, if there was conflict, it would have definitely been addressed like boom, right then and there.
Yes.
But I think what I know happened from that is he went on his own journey and then like totally did not end up smoking the entire time. And even I think to this day is maybe he is, maybe he's not. I don't know the answer, but if he is, I'd be willing to bet everything that I own that it's 90% less than what it was. And so that was a potentiality of conflict that didn't
Mm-hmm.
arise, but it's definitely
Yeah.
conflict within him because he was battling his own demon.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a wonderful memory, AJ. I remember that clearly too. And I agree. That was a beautiful space
Yeah,
that all the rest of us held, of not judging him and allowing him to have whatever experience he needed to have.
totally.
Yeah.
Totally. The only other one
Yeah.
I think, and I don't think it's conflict again. I think it was just like it was what was required. Was one of the guys was really terrified of his anger, and the group was working with him to like bring it up out of his feet, and it kind of stopped.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know, around his diaphragm. It just kind of
Yeah.
stopped and got stuck. And so we're like, man, we got to bring it up and like out and put a voice
Mm-hmm.
to it so it's like
Yeah.
out. And I remember volunteering and like being in his face and like yelling and screaming, and he's yelling and screaming. And to me, probably if somebody walked in the house, they're like, "What's going on?"
Right.
And they would have thought it was conflict. I didn't feel like it was conflict at all. It was just part of the healing process that was just required for that moment, which was an awesome experience.
Yeah. And, maybe perhaps for that circle, there was so much of this conscious challenge.
Yeah.
Right. And I remember you, my brother, being such an important and key part of that challenge. I remember you bringing very clearly and powerfully the energy of what felt like a Viking warrior, and stepping up to challenge several of the brothers with this consciousness, with this love for them, right? Not in a way that was putting them down, but in a way that was calling them forward. And so perhaps that, that conscious challenging, really dissipated the need for any unexpected conflict to arise.
That's awesome, dude. Thanks. Yeah. That was a big deal for me, man, because part of my thing that I was terrified, because I'd never done a men's event before. I'd been in other breakthrough experiences, but I'd never done a men's event. And I was really terrified. One of my big fears coming in was like, man, if I come in, I know I'm a monster truck. I know I crush people. It's just part of who I am. And I want to go into a place where that part of me can be nurtured, because for so long I felt like I told a story that I had to like not be that, right?
Yeah.
When in reality, it's part of my superpower when welded consciously. There's a way to do it, and there's a way that it has done me many times in the past, and the way that it did me is I repressed it because I was like, I can't handle this. People around me can't handle it. And I've learned how to really consciously let it out, as you've experienced, in a way that's not harmful to any human ever, actually. And so Hawaii was huge for me to like really step in and have the space to be that, and also witness the transformation that takes place from that. Mm-hmm. And then also just like heal a lot of it, like heal a lot of the shadow of that, which was apathy from like some of my father's stuff and with my marriage. And so it was huge for me just to like be able to express it and it to be received, and see the fruits of that. It was really, really powerful for me.
Oh, that's so beautiful, my brother. Yeah.
Awesome. What are some, we're almost coming home here. So what are some mistakes that you find keep people, or that people make, that keep them from like integrating their masculine and feminine? Is it literally just sedation and masking it?
Yeah, I feel like those are two very big obstacles. The unwillingness for whatever reason to allow for, whatever aspects of ourselves need to be shown and seen and felt. I feel like for me, if I'm willing to drop my judgment, if I'm willing to drop my grip of control, then whatever part of myself needs to come forth will.
Yeah.
And I suppose that's going to be different for each individual.
Totally.
For some, there's going to be a lot more yang because that's simply their nature. And for others, there's going to be much more yin because that's the way that they were designed. And I heard you reference human design, which has also been a tremendous, tremendous learning for me as well. And it's allowed me to even more deeply appreciate the infinitely different ways we're all configured, and the vast subtleties between those differences.
Yeah, dude, me too. Human design was a game changer because it put language around things I felt my entire life. And I felt like now I can just align to a way that I'm specifically designed to thrive on the planet. And Human design's been
Yeah.
awesome for me.
Yeah. And to fucking celebrate that,
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
Rather than feeling, oh, why am I not like the way that the world thinks I should be? No, I am designed this way and it's fucking beautiful.
Yeah, so good. Awesome. Well, dude, I know you have some cool things coming up. You have, like, you're doing some marriage stuff. You're helping Shims with a men's event where you guys are doing men's leadership council. You got your architecture stuff. Like, you have so many ways that you're doing. Tell us a little bit about like some of the things that you're able to help people like integrate. I know like your marriage stuff that you got going on, I think would be a brilliant way to help people integrate both masculine, feminine, and the yang and the yin.
Yeah, thanks for asking, AJ. Yeah, the couples course that we've put forth, we call it Conscious Couples, Hearts Wide Open. We ran our first iteration of it about a couple months ago. We had 10 couples join us, and it unfolded beautifully. It was such a wonderful experience for the two of us to co-create it and to co-facilitate it. That was the first program that we done together, and we received such amazing feedback from it, that we're definitely going to run it back again.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome.
And the work that I'm doing with Shems, which I'm so grateful for. Oh, and Shems asked me to give you a big hug, by the way.
I'll take it. I'll receive it all.
All right. Yeah, I'm so blessed to work with him, and the work that we're doing in the Men's Leadership Council. That's a year-long program. I believe there's 10 brothers with us on that journey.
Awesome.
And a couple of other brothers are also co-facilitating with Shems and I, and that is such a deep dive, AJ. And we've Shems has really configured that so that there is such rich engagement, all through the course. So that even though we're dropping in on calls, I feel like 2 times a month, right? And we're using, I don't know if you've heard of this app called Marco Polo.
Yeah. Actually, I use it with Naeem, and I connect with that way, and Nick and I actually connect via Marco Polo too. Yeah.
Sweet. Yeah. So the Marco Polo tool has been amazing for the MLC. We're all using it to simply share what's up, or to call each other forth, right? Or to, just call for support, right? And the level of engagement and the depth of engagement that all of the brothers in that container are stepping up with is amazing.
Awesome.
And then there's Shem's regular 8-week online program, the Men's Passage, which we just concluded, and I believe the next one is going to be, I don't remember when the next one is going to start, but we'll do that at least a couple times a year, if not 3 times a year.
Awesome.
And then there's this new monthly membership platform that we're planning to bring on board, and this will be a gathering for both men and women, and we're envisioning it as a community founded on bi-weekly conversations led by a diverse array of change makers, thought leaders around the most important dynamic issues of society and consciousness, supported by breakout discussions that will be facilitated by coaches and leaders in the community. So
Right.
really juicy, inspiring, transformative content, and also the space for smaller groups within that discussion to really dive into, how those pieces feel for them, what those pieces mean for them.
Awesome. I'll put all of the links to all of that stuff in the show notes. So you guys listening, if you guys want to check it out, you guys can check out all of that. And my last question for you is this. If you could go back in time and give your younger self some wisdom that would help him collapse time and get results faster, what would you tell him?
Feel, little one. It is okay to feel. And in that feeling, so much of life will open up to you. And you will simply have so much more joy and such a deeper knowing of who you truly are.
Awesome. Awesome, brother. Well, Levin, thank you so much for being here today, man. Just really appreciate you. Thank you.
It is such my pleasure, my brother. So good to be with you. And thank you so much for inviting me on.
Well, there you have it, my friend, the incredible Leivan Hwang. I love this conversation. I could sit here and talk with him for hours. I mean, like just being with Levin and the other men in Hawaii, that was a life-changing experience for me. And I'm always like really amazed, like what happens when we allow ourselves to just like be with someone. It's almost as if part of our way of being absorbs part of their way of being. I know this sounds crazy. And yet this is the thing that helps us to heal like one another. And I've experienced this time and time again with different people at different times. And I've witnessed this same transformation take place for many of my clients at my Uprising events. So anyway, I hope you enjoyed this episode. If it inspired you in some way, I'd love to hear about it. I'd love to know what your biggest takeaway was. Simply take a screenshot of you listening to this episode on your device, post it over on your Instagram stories, and tag me just at AJ Amyx, AJAMYX over on Instagram. Thank you so much for being here. That's going to do it for this episode of the Anthony John Amyx podcast. Until next time, my friend, I'm out. Peace.
Well, that's all I've got for this episode of the Anthony John Amyx podcast, but we have plenty more to help you become unstoppable in life and business. So head on over to ajamyx.com for exclusive resources, information, and tools to help you break through to a new level of freedom, purpose, and success. I look forward to having you back for the next episode. Bye for now.